In today's video, we focus on cards that allow you to manipulate your opponent's prize cards and powerful comeback cards that can be taken advantage of in ways that were never intended as a result. In the Pokémon TCG, the player with fewer prize cards remaining is often in a more favorable position to win the game. So it's no surprise there's been a variety of cards designed to facilitate comebacks that use prize cards as a measure for who's winning or losing. One of the most powerful, balanced, and appreciated of these comeback cards is In. First printed all the way back in 2004's Team Rocket Returns expansion under the name Rocket's Admin, and then again in 2011's Noble Victories expansion, In is a supporter card that forces each player to shuffle their hand into their deck, then draw a card for each of the remaining prize cards. For example, if you have 6 prize cards left and your opponent only has 1, you draw 6 cards off of In, and your opponent would only draw 1. While In acts as a great consistency card early game, netting both players a fresh hand of 6 cards, it becomes a powerful equalizer later in the game that ensures neither player takes a commanding lead without first setting up their board to handle having access to minimal new resources for the final turns of the game. Throughout all of its various reprints, In has facilitated glimmers of exciting and skill-based gameplay in even the worst of formats, except for one. It was in September 22nd, 2019 in Tokyo, Japan. The 1600 player standard format tournament had already begun, but 435 players eagerly awaited the start of the expanded format tournament that would run alongside it. Only a few weeks prior, Japan's Altered Genesis set, which would make up the bulk of our Cosmic Eclipse set, was released to bring in the infamously dreaded Arceus Dialga and Palkia Tag Team GX, among other powerful cards. As with all Tag Team Pokemon, Arceus Dialga and Palkia GX is a basic Pokemon that gives up 3 prize cards when knocked out. It boasts a massive 280 HP and 2 powerful attacks. For a Water Energy, a Metal Energy, and a Colorless, Ultimate Raid does 150 damage, and allows you to search your deck for 3 basic energy cards and attach them to your bench Pokemon any way you like. The real showstopper was its Altered Creation GX attack. For 1 Metal Energy, Altered Creation makes all of your Pokemon's attacks deal an additional 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon for the rest of the game. If Arceus Dialga and Palkia GX had an extra Water Energy attached to it in addition to the Metal Energy for its attack cost, for the rest of the game, whenever your opponent's active Pokemon was knocked out by damage from one of your Pokemon's attacks, you would take an additional prize card. This effect was absurdly broken and resulted in calls for the card's ban from the standard formats in years to come. But it was even more powerful in expanded format. This was the first opportunity for the Dragon-type trio to make use of double Dragon Energy in a large event, which could pay for its Altered Creation GX attack, including the bonus effect, for only the single energy attachment. Luckily, the expanded format provided a counter to Altered Creation GX in the form of Pokemon Ranger, a supporter card that removes all effects of attacks on each player and their Pokemon, which would nullify the effect of Altered Creation GX. The dynamic between these 3 cards would surely be the focus of the tournament, but some players had their attention captivated by a new tool card, completely unsuspecting at first glance: Island Challenge Amulet. When Island Challenge Amulet was attached to Pokemon EX or Pokemon GX, that Pokemon would have 100 less total HP and give up 1 fewer prize card when knocked out by an opponent's attack. This card was a catalyst for one of the most game-breaking decks the Pokemon TCG had ever seen, even surpassing the Seismitoad, Shaymin, Lysandra's trump card deck described in our first ban list episode. Island Challenge Amulet could be paired with Jirachi EX. When you play Jirachi from your hand onto your bench, its Stellar Guidance ability allows you to search your deck for a supporter card and put it into your hand. This ability was excellent for consistency, but the most important feature of Jirachi EX in this deck was its pitiful 90 HP for Pokemon EX. This meant that when Island Challenge Amulet was attached to Jirachi, it would be knocked out immediately and your opponent would take 2 prize cards because Island Challenge Amulet's effect of reduce the number of prize cards taken only activates when the Pokemon it's attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack. In order to find these 2 cards, the players included 4 Shaymin EX. When you play Shaymin from your hand onto your bench, you can use its setup ability to draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. Unlike Crobat V's Dark Acid ability, Shaymin EX's setup isn't restricted to being used once per turn, so you could use all 4 of your Shaymin EX's setup abilities in a single turn. Players also included Hoopa EX for additional consistency. When you play Hoopa from your hand onto your bench, you can use its Scoundrel Ring ability to search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon EX, except for another Hoopa EX, and put them into your hand. 1 Ultra Ball or Mysterious Treasure could turn into any combination of 3 Jirachi and Shaymin EX through the use of Hoopa EX's Scoundrel Ring. Finally, players supplemented this combination consistency Pokemon with Mismagius from the Unbroken Bonds expansion. Mismagius released alongside the item card Duststone, which allows you to search your deck for a Mismagius, Honchkrow, Chandelier, or Aegislash that evolves from one of your Pokemon in play and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. This card circumvented the normal rules of evolution, so Mr. Vis could evolve into Mismagius on the first turn of the game through Duststone. Mismagius' ability, Mysterious Message, allows you to knock Mismagius out, giving your opponent a prize card in order to draw cards until you have 7 in hand. With the help of all these powerful consistency abilities, you would attempt to give your opponent 5 of their 6 prize cards on turn 1. often before they even had a chance to take a turn. Normally, this strategy sounds insane. You're intentionally putting your opponent only one prize card away from winning the game. But with the next part of this combo, we'll be ensuring your opponent never gets the opportunity to attack a single time. First, we'll play the supporter card Lieutenant Surge's strategy. You can only play this card when you have more prize cards left than your opponent, which certainly will be the case after the previous part of the combo. During this turn, you may play 3 supporter cards, including this card. Next, for our second supporter card of the turn, we'll play the well-loved but soon to be hated Inn, giving your opponent only 1 card to work with and a fresh new hand of 6 cards for us. Finally, our third supporter card of the turn, we'll play Mars. Mars allows you to draw 2 cards, and if you do, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. After playing Mars, our opponent will be left with a 0 card hand. Then, we'll play the item card Chip Chip Ice Axe. It allows you to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, choose one of them, shuffle the other 2 cards into the deck, then place the chosen card on top. Ice Axe will guarantee our opponent draws a useless card on their next turn, completely eliminating all of their options. Finally, after all of that, we're ready to take care of the attacker we'll be using to close out the game with over the next few turns. Garchomp and Giratina Tag Team GX. As a tag team Pokemon, Garchomp and Giratina GX make a perfect partner for the strategy, because its downside of giving up 3 prize cards and knocked out is irrelevant if our opponent only needs to take a single prize card to win the game. Garchomp and Giratina's GX's first attack, Linear Attack, costs 1 colorless energy and does 40 damage to any one of your opponent's Pokemon. This 40 damage snipe sets up for its second attack, Calamitous Slash. For 1 Psychic Energy, 1 Fighting, and 1 Colorless, Calamitous Slash does 160 base damage, but 80 more for a total of 240 if the defending Pokemon already has any damage counters on it. Finally, for 2 Psychic Energy and 1 Fighting, GG and GX lets you discard one of your opponent's Pokemon from play. If Garchomp and Giratina has at least 3 extra Fighting Energy attached to it in addition to GG and GX's attack cost, you discard 2 of your opponent's Pokemon instead of 1. Because Garchomp and Giratina is a Dragon-type Pokemon, the aforementioned double Dragon Energy also works to provide for both its Psychic and Fighting Energy requirements. Additionally, the tool card Karate Belt can be used to lower its attack costs. As long as you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, which will be the case after giving them 5 free prize cards, Karate Belt makes the attacks the Pokemon's attached to cost 1 Fighting Energy less. If your Pokemon went first and set up a threat that could deal with Garchomp and Giratina, you could use GG and GX on turn 1 to discard that attacker and never have to deal with it confrontationally. Then, over the course of the next few turns, slowly whittle away the Linear Attack and Calamitous Slash until we've taken all 6 prize cards, playing a Chip Chip Ice Axe each turn to ensure your opponent never gets to play the game. The aftermath of this expanded Championships League in Tokyo saw this deck take 5 out of the top 8 spots from only a small portion of players entering the tournament with it. As a result, the most extensive update to the ban list yet was enacted in time for the English release of the Cosmic Eclipse in October 2019. Island Challenge Amulet, Mismagius, Lieutenant Surge's strategy, and Chip Chip Ice Axe were all banned to ensure none of these cards could be used in a similar strategy in the future. In recognition of their mistake, when a Hero's Medal was released a year later in the Vivid Voltage expansion, a card with the same effect as Island Challenge Amulet except with Pokemon VMAX, it contained a stipulation at the end that prevents it from being attached to a Pokemon with 100 HP or less remaining. A card which could have served as a replacement for in strategies that relied on Lieutenant Surge's strategy to play in combination with another supporter card was also banned alongside the previous cards. Reset Stamp is an item card that forces your opponent to shuffle their hand into their deck and draw a card for each of the remaining prize cards. The effect is exactly like a one-sided in, except, crucially, it's on an item card instead of a supporter. While Reset Stamp itself never saw the same exploitation as the previous cards we've discussed today, it would have resulted in similar situations as the ones Lieutenant Surge's strategy enabled had it been left in the format for longer, so it was preemptively banned by the Pokémon Company. The final banned card we'll be discussing today is Milotic from 2014's Flash Fire expansion. Once, during your turn, you may use Milotic's Energy Grace ability to knock out Milotic, giving your opponent a prize card. If you do, attach 3 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon, excluding Pokemon EX. For over 5 years, Milotic saw next to no play. The cost of giving up a prize card for only 3 basic energy just wasn't worth it, especially when Milotic was limited to single prize non-EX Pokemon that would be prize trading efficiently as soon as they started getting up their additional prize cards. Even when Pokemon GX came out that could use Milotic's Energy Grace thanks to being considered a separate mechanic from Pokemon EX, there were usually better forms of energy acceleration in the expanded format. It took a specific Tag Team GX in January 2020 to finally bring Milotic to the spotlight, Trevenant and Dusknoir GX. This card is a basic Pokemon with 270 HP that gives up 3 prize cards when knocked out. For 3 Psychic Energy, its Night Watch attack does 150 damage, then lets you choose 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. Your opponent shuffles those 2 cards into their deck. For a Psychic Energy and a Colorless, Pale Moon GX puts an effect on your opponent's active Pokemon that knocks it out at the end of your opponent's next turn. If Trevenant and Dusk Noir had an extra psychic energy attached to it, in addition to Pale Moon GX's attack cost, Pale Moon GX would also discard all energy cards attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Trevenant and Dusk Noir's Night Watch attack was somewhat costly, even within the expanded format's variety of energy acceleration, so Milotic was a reasonable partner in that regard. But what really put this strategy over the edge was the combination of those two Pokemon with a supporter card, Ace Trainer. Ace Trainer can only be played when you have more prize cards left than your opponent. You shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw 6 cards. Your opponent shuffles their hand into their deck and only draws 3. Milotic could power up Trevenant and Dusk Noir GX on the second turn of the game, giving your opponent a prize card, allowing you to play Ace Trainer, which would put your opponent down to 3 cards. Then Trevenant and Dusk Noir GX's Night Watch attack would take them down to 1 random card in hand at the end of your turn. If this wasn't deadly enough already, players included Gengar and Mimikyu GX in their decks in order to use its Horror House GX attack on the first turn of the game, if they went second. For 1 Psychic Energy, Horror House GX prevents your opponent from playing any cards from their hand during their next turn. If Gengar Mimikyu GX had an extra Psychic Energy attached to it in addition to Horror House's GX attack costs, both players would also draw until they had 7 cards in their hand. This attack was meant to combo with Gengar Mimikyu GX's first attack, Poltergeist, which for 2 Psychic Energy has your opponent reveal their hand, then it does 50 damage times the number of trainer cards that were revealed. But Horror House GX was powerful enough to lock your opponent out of the game for the 1 turn necessary to evolve Phoebus into Milotic in order to execute the Ace Trainer into Night Watch combo. Finally, players often included Muck or Garbodor in the decks to shut off abilities like Shaman EX's setup, which could bail opponents out of the Night Watch lock if they happen to draw those Pokemon or a way to find them like Ultra Ball. After a year of terrorizing the expanded format, the Pokémon Company finally decided to nerf Trevenant and Dusknoir GX by banning Milotic. In their words, Milotic's Energy Grace ability doesn't work with Pokemon EX, but it still works with Pokemon GX and Pokemon V. This created some undesirable combos, such as the one with Trevenant and Dusknoir GX and Ace Trainer. As more Pokemon V come out in the future, there's a high likelihood of even more combos with Milotic being discovered. Alright, and that's it for the installment of this history of every banned card in the expanded format. Look out for the next part where we'll be covering a variety of alternative win conditions. And also, if you have any ideas for future videos similar to this one, please let us know in the comments down below.